Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 28th of March and we are going to deal with two very important topics which are in news. First is the India Employment Report 2024. This report is released by the Institute of Human Development and International Labour Organization. This report has some paradoxical findings with respect to India. Paradoxical findings simply means that the situation with respect to employment was deteriorating from 2000 to 2019. But during the COVID years and post that, when the entire world is struggling, the situations have improved for India from 2019 till 2022-23. This is the paradox. The situation for the entire world has deteriorated and the situation for India has increased. However, multiple challenges are still there in the employment scenario in India. Women participation is less. The quality of employment is low as many of or majority of the workforce is employed in the informal sector. Usage of AI poses further threats to employment in India. Social security is not ensured. So the government needs to step up on all these fronts to ensure good quality employment generation in the country. Next is KRISHI Integrated Command and Control Center. Now just imagine you being a farmer and your details, your individual details of your farms are there with the government. And the government can propose you or suggest you that, this is going to be the weather in the future. This is going to be the wind speed, temperatures, moisture content in the air. So you can sow this particular crop. And we will ensure that we will purchase this crop at MSP if applicable. Now, this kind of digital platform where all the information with respect to weather prediction, with respect to crop yield, with respect to estimated cultivation and all is there with the government Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. And it can give inputs to individual farmers for improving its productivity. That is KRISHI Integrated Command and Control Center. So let's get started. And as we have started from yesterday, that we are dealing with MCQs, 5 MCQs daily related to these topics which we will be covering, whether 2 or 3 topics, with whatever we will be covering in the end the MCQs related to these topics. The first is the India Employment Report 2024. Now there have been paradoxical improvements in labor market indicators for India. Now, paradoxical improvement, let us first understand the meaning of this word paradoxical improvement. From 2000 till 2019, the scenario in the labor market was down for India, means the indicators, these 3 indicators were dropping. And after 2019, that is 2020, 21, 22, which happens to be coinciding with the COVID years, which happens to be the years where the entire world is struggling. During these periods, these indicators for India have become better. 2020 till 2023, they have become better. That is why paradoxical improvements, the word is used by ILO. Now, first indicator is labor force participation rate. This has been improved for India in this time period 2022-23 or 2019-22, 2023 we can consider. Now, what is labor force participation rate? The basics of this you should know. It is the total number of people who are working and are willing to work upon the total population. That is called as labor force participation rate. Above 15 years. Not the entire population, but above 15 years means, people who are working or willing to work upon population above 15 years of age. That is basically labor force participation rate. Workforce participation rate or worker population ratio also it is called as. So the short form workforce participation rate or worker population ratio is the same. WPR. Okay. This is also known as workers population ratio. Now this is basically the number of people who are working in the working age group. Or we can say that number of people who are employed. Here we are taking into account in labor force participation rate, we are taking into account the people who are working and who are seeking work or willing to work. Here only those people who are working in the numerator. In the denominator, we have population above 15 years of age. Unemployment rate is defined as the percentage of persons unemployed among the persons in the labor force. Persons in the labor force are generally considered above 15 years, because till 14 years of age, child labor is considered, and child labor is according to law banned in the country. So all these three indicators have improved for India in this time period, and that is a paradox. So after long-term deterioration from 2000 to 2019, they have improved. The improvement has coincided with periods of economic distress both before and during the COVID pandemic, says India Employment Report 2024. And this report is released by collectively two institutes. First is Institute for Human Development and second is International Labour Organization. Now about this index, some basic details that what parameters are considered while formulating this index. First is percentage of workers employed in regular formal work, percentage of casual laborers means hire and fire, percentage of self-employed workers below the poverty line, work participation rate means how many people are employed, average monthly earnings of casual laborers, unemployment rate of secondary and above educated youth. What is it? Youth not in employment and education or training. Another finding which we will definitely see in this report in the details when we go ahead is that the percentage of educated youth in unemployed people in India has increased. More number of educated youth are now unemployed in India. This simply means that. And that is something which is concerning and disturbing both. Now, when I go to the findings of this particular report, the report has flagged certain concerns about poor employment conditions in the country. The slow transition from non-farm to non-farm employment has reversed. So we have three sectors: primary, secondary and tertiary. Primary sector has mining and agri. So people were moving towards non-farm sectors from agri sector earlier. The transition was slow, but now that slow transition also has been reversed, means people are moving more towards agriculture, as it has been seen that employment in agriculture sector has increased over the years. This is something which is concerning, because as you develop as an economy, this transition should be there from agri to non-agri. But here the situation has been reversed. Next is women largely account for increase in self-employment and unpaid family work. Unpaid family work means housewives they are. Youth employment is of poorer quality than employment for adults. Why we are saying this, we'll substantiate with these findings. And wages and earnings are stagnant or declining. This is what the findings with respect to poor employment conditions are. Now if you look at this table, now in the year 2000, self-employment among the youth, first of all we are looking this is among the youth. 50% of the youth were self-employed, 13% were in regular employment and 37% were in casual employment. This is a concern, casual employment. Self-employment, if it is of good quality or high level, then obviously that is very good, entrepreneurship and all. But if it is petty, entrepreneurship, then that is something which is concerning as well. But definitely self-employment is better than casual employment. Then if I talk about the adults, 54% of adults were self-employed, 16% were regular and casual were 31%. Again, disturbing. Now, share of unemployed educated youths, secondary or higher education, these youths have in total unemployed persons. 88.6% all unemployment rate, 54.2 of them were secondary and higher educated. In 2012, it increased to 58.9. 2019, it increased to 69.4 and 2022, it increased to 65.7. Means those people who are secondary or higher than secondary educated, higher than secondary means graduation, post-graduation and all. So 65.7% of the total unemployed people in the country are these people, secondary and higher educated. So this is what it says. Then the employment condition index has improved between 2004-5 and 2021-22. But some states like Bihar, Odisha, Jharkhand and UP have remained at the bottom throughout this period. The conditions over there have not improved. While some others in Delhi, Himachal Pradesh, Telangana, Uttarakhand and Gujarat have stayed at the top. Means those who were at the top remain at the top, those who were at the bottom remain at the bottom. And here concern is these poor states. Now, there is one very famous political analyst in the country, and his name is Prashant Kishore. I hope you might have heard his name. Now he has launched a campaign in Bihar. He is not contesting elections, but yes, he's doing a very good job, a very unique initiative he has undertaken that is named as Jan Suraj. And he's making the people of Bihar more and more aware about how to vote, because Bihar elections are on caste lines largely, and that is something which has been a tradition in Bihar, and probably one of those reasons why people in Bihar do not vote for development, they vote for caste. Development does not happen because caste stays where it is. And he revealed in one of his podcasts to one of, I would say, the podcasters in the country, he said that when we see Bihar from top, we see that Bihar is poor. But when you go deep down in the society, you will understand that Bihar is poorer than what we see from top. That is something which was shocking. So that needs to be taken care of. Development needs to happen, and obviously political will definitely play a major role over here. Then employment quality, if I talk about. Informal employment has risen. Around half the jobs in the formal sector are of informal nature. In the formal sector also half the jobs are of informal nature. Self-employment and unpaid family work has also increased, especially for women. 82% of the workforce is engaged in informal sector. Nearly 90% is informally employed. Self-employment remains the primary source of employment, 55.8% in the country. Casual and regular employment account for 22.7% and 21.5% respectively. So, like previous times, self-employment was here major, I would say, employer. Now also 55.8% of the people are self-employed. But the concern is, casual employment, that is 22.7%. That has to reduce and this has to increase regular employment. Regular employment is that kind of employment where you get social security, you have job security as well. So that is what regular employment is. Next is share of educated youth in unemployed workforce. So below primary level, 3.2% are there in unemployed workforce. Elementary level educated who are unemployed, 6.1%. Higher secondary level educated who are unemployed, or secondary educated who are unemployed, are 11.5%. The major concern is graduate and above who are unemployed are 28.7%. Means if I consider this entire pie of unemployed people in the country, out of this entire pie, 28.7% are graduates and above, which is the highest. 11.5% are higher secondary educated and all. So that is which is concerning. However, graduates and above, 26.5% it has reduced from 28.7% in 2022. So this is something which needs to be taken care of. Participation of women. This is also one such major area where, we need to take a lot of focus on. The Prime Minister in his, Independence Day speeches right from 2022 has been focusing immensely on Nari Shakti and women employment. You cannot become a developed country with women not part of the workforce. And sadly, as of now, women are not part of the workforce up to that level which they should have been. We are the world's 5th largest economy and we are struggling on, making women part of the labor workforce. The female labor force participation rate in India remains among the world's lowest. Female LFPR declined by 14.4 percentage points compared to 8.1 percentage point for males between 2000 and 2019. Now the trend reversed thereafter. Now, as we have seen that this report is showing paradoxical improvements for India. So between 2000 and 2019, there were drops in multiple indicators, including female labor force participation rate. And this trend reversed, means after that, there was rise in women's participation. Female LFPR rising by 8.3 percentage points compared to 1.7 percentage point for male between 2019 and 2022. There is a considerable gender gap as well. Women's LFPR 32.8%, which simply means that 32.8% of the women in India are working or willing to work. In 2022 was 2.3 times lower than men's 77.2% LFPR. Means 77.2% of the men in India are working or are willing to work or seeking employment. India's low LFPR is largely attributed to the low female LFPR. India has a low LFPR overall if we see, and which can be attributed to, means the major factor behind the low LFPR of India can be low female LFPR, which is very low actually, 32.8%. But it is not the lowest in South Asia. It is well below the world average. It is lower than the world average. World average of female LFPR is 47.3%. But it is higher. The female LFPR in India is higher than South Asian average of 24.8%. So South Asia has countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Maldives. So it is better than female LFPR of South Asia, but it is below the world or the global average female LFPR. That needs to be increased. Then if I talk about structural transformation. Structural transformation simply means the changes in the structure of employment. Structure is how many are involved or how many are employed in the primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Primary sector is agriculture and mining. It is not value generating. Too much value is not generated or cannot be generated from this sector. Secondary sector has the highest employment generation capacity. Means people can be employed maximum in the secondary sector among all these sectors. And this tertiary sector has the highest value generating capacity. Presently, if I talk about India, the maximum GDP of India comes from the tertiary sector because highest value generating capacity. After that secondary and after that primary sector, like this. But how has the workforce been employed? How much workforce is employed where? Primary, secondary, tertiary. We will see this. We also saw that, the transition from farm to non-farm sector means people get more and more employed from primary sector to secondary and tertiary sector as economic development happens. That has been slow first of all in India, and now that has been reversed. People are going back to the primary sector more and more. There has been a reversal of slow transition towards non-farm employment after 2018-19. The share of agriculture in total employment fell to around 42% in 2019 from 60% in 2000. And now this has slightly increased from 42% because there has been reversal of this transition. Transition was 60 to 42%, means farm to non-farm they went, and in the farm 42% only remained. Earlier there were 60%, but now the reversal has happened. People have started moving towards primary, agriculture. This shift was largely absorbed by construction and services, the share of which in total employment increased to 32% in 2019 from 23% in 2000. Share of manufacturing was somewhere around 12 to 14%. Means this much people are employed in manufacturing sector, and the apathy, another paradox over here is that the sector with the highest employment generating capacity is employing only 12 to 14 people in people in India. That is something which is disturbing. So since 2018, this slow transition towards non-farm sector has stagnated or reversed with rise in share of agriculture employment. So you can misinterpret also that reversal of slow transition. Reversal of slow transition, you can say, acha, transition intensified means increased, the speed increased. No. transition was happening from farm to non-farm, that was slow. Now that has been reversed, means from non-farm to farm people are coming. Way forward, what should be done? There are 5 key policy areas for further action. First is promoting job creation. Obviously, we will have to do that. Employment quality also should be looked into. More and more formal employment should be there, or regular employment should be there. Addressing labor market inequalities, means those who are skilled, they get too much employment opportunities and much higher wages also. So these inequalities have to be addressed. How they can be addressed? You have to skill the unskilled or less skilled. Strengthening skills and active labor market policies you have to bring in, as I said. Bridging the knowledge deficits on labor market patterns and youth employment, they should be looked into. Then another challenge which is coming up for employment generation is artificial intelligence. So we need to take into account this, that artificial intelligence does not eat up too many jobs. Then investment and regulations are required in emerging care and digital economies. Care economies, hospitalization and all. Digital economies, everything is going digital. Now, lack of job security, irregular wages, and uncertain employment status for gig and platform workers, that also needs to be addressed. Gig and platform workers are basically those workers who are not in the traditional employer-employee relationship. Traditional employer-employee relationship is that you work for an employer, at the end of the month you get the salary. But here, as gig workers, the more amount of work you do, the more amount of wages you earn. And let's suppose you are off on a particular day, you will not earn money for that day. That is a challenge for gig or platform workers that needs to be taken care of. Means social security for gig and platform workers has to be ensured. Economic policies are required to boost productive non-farm employment. That has to be increased. And especially in the manufacturing sector. Our focus on manufacturing sector, although has improved in the past, but that is needed further over here. And more support needs to be provided to micro, small and medium sized enterprises, MSMEs, which are generally for the secondary sector. Tertiary sector is also there, MSME for services is also there. But yes, these are major employment creators or major employment generators, or they can be the engine of employment generation in the country for the time to come. So we need to take a lot of learnings from this report. However, the findings of this report can be challenged by the government because the government has separate data. This finding has separate data. So, we need to take care of that. Now, the next piece of news is KRISHI Integrated Command and Control Center. So, first of all, Integrated Command and Control Center is not new. We have established Integrated Command and Control Center for monitoring air pollution. Integrated Command and Control Center for monitoring traffic also has been introduced. So it is basically a generic platform, and now this has been introduced for the farmers. That is why KRISHI Integrated Command and Control Center it is named as. It was inaugurated by Agriculture Minister Mr. Arjun Munda on the KRISHI Bhavan, and it is a big screen dashboard. Now this big screen dashboard will have all the information related to weather prediction. What is going to be the temperature, what is going to be the wind speed, what is going to be the moisture content in the wind, rainfall can be expected or not, or any disaster can be expected or not, like floods and all. Accordingly, predictions are done for crop yield, how much crops will be produced. So things like these are there. And guess what? In this, individual farmers' data can also be shown. You enter the Aadhaar number, or I would say the unique identification number of that farmer, and of that farmer already the records are maintained. Land records have been digitalized. What amount of what kind of production or what kind of crops did that farmer grow in the last season? How the farmer in the coming season can improve its productivity or his or her productivity from the land it has, obviously considering all those weather prediction parameters into picture, and what can be best suitable for this farmer. This kind of, I would say, information can be seen on this KRISHI Integrated Command and Control Center, and this is obviously going to be very helpful. Majorly, this is for taking policy decisions at the central level. Now, what is this KRISHI ICCC? It is a tech-based solution involving multiple IT applications. Multiple IT applications because see, we are doing weather predictions over here, crop yield predictions over here. We are also having access to the individual farmers' data over here. We are giving information to the farmers. Now, giving information to the farmers in their local languages, we can use Bhashini platform, which is integrated in this KRISHI ICCC. That is why it is said that it is a tech-based solution involving multiple IT applications. If we have to give suggestions to the farmers in their local languages, we use Bhashini, which is basically an AI-based translator. So, multiple, I would say, IT applications have been integrated over here, which is designed to help in making informed decisions. The center is housed in Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, which is responsible for legislation, policy formulation and implementation of initiatives for the agriculture sector. So mainly, this Ministry of Agriculture will be looking at this portal and will be devising policies or frameworks for the farmers. The ICCC uses the state-of-the-art technologies such as artificial intelligence, remote sensing, geographic information systems to collect, process large amounts of data on temperatures, rainfall, wind speed, crop yields, production estimations, and present in graphical format the solutions for that. Objective of ICCC. See, in ICCC, we will be taking into account the plot level data received through soil survey, weather data from IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, sowing data from digital crop survey, farmer and farm related data from KRISHI Mapper, application for geofencing and geotagging of land, market intelligence information from the Unified Portal for Agricultural Statistics, and yield estimation data from general crop estimation surveys. So we will be taking multiple inputs from multiple other platforms, and then we will be devising certain outputs after taking these inputs. These outputs are aiming to increase the productivity, are aiming to reduce or minimize the losses of these farmers, and that is the objective of ICCC. Government will get adequate information and accurate information, apt information for taking any policy decisions or making any policy decisions or making any schemes or policies for the government, for the farmers, sorry. So this is basically the objective of ICCC. Visualization of data will be better, will enable quick and efficient decision making by the government. And this will be linked with PM Kisan chatbot also going forward. Now, can individual farmers specific information be obtained by ICCC? Yes, it can be obtained. It can be generated. You can, enter the mobile number or Aadhaar of that particular farmer. Obviously, that Aadhaar or mobile number should be linked to his or her land records. Now, after entering this, we get to know this farmer owns a piece of land. This is the area of the land. This is the location of the land. Last cropping season, this farmer grew this much crop, and this was the productivity last season. He sold the crop to XYZ person and he earned this much money for his selling of the crop yield. Now this level of data can be obtained by ICCC, and hence we can suggest the individual farmer कि a farmer last season you grew this season you can grow this crop. If you grow this crop, government is going to increase the MSP for this crop, or government has already announced increase MSP for this crop. This crop is suitable according to the weather conditions which are being predicted in your area or for your area, and you can maximize your crop yield by using these inputs, which will make your income this much, which is better than or more than your previous cropping year's income. This level of information can be given to the farmer, and that too in the local language or the vernacular language of that farmer by using the Bhashini platform, which has been integrated in this. So this is how it can be benefiting the farmers at individual levels. The practical applications of this particular KRISHI ICCC's farmers advisory, we can give advice to the farmers as I have just told you. Drought actions, weather predictions and all can be done. So actions can be taken for droughts. Crop diversification, what kind of crops you can grow, to what degree you can diversify your crops. Farm data repository, the repository of farm data and all can be there. And validation of yield. This was the prediction for crop yield, that this much yield will be there, but this much is only there, or this much is there. So we can validate the yield. Now we enter into the MCQs. These MCQs are based on the two topics which we have covered. The first MCQ is, which of the following bodies releases the India Employment Report? India Employment Report has been released to 2024, which we covered. So out of these three, you have to find out which are the two bodies. Quite straight, factual question, nothing to think about it. Consider the following statements and mark the correct one. Labor force participation rate is defined as number of people employed in workforce. Labor force participation rate will always be numerically more than workers population ratio for a particular time period. Now here, this is conceptual. You need to know what labor force participation rate is, what worker population ratio is, and if you have that clarity, then only you will be able to get these two statements, whether right or wrong. So conceptual clarity is needed over here. How can quality of employment in India become better? This is something where you have to think. By focusing on MSMEs, increasing coverage of education and skill, social security coverage to increase, better regulation by the government. So obviously, common sense if you apply, then also this question can be answered. Next is, what is KRISHI Integrated Command and Control Center? It is completely factual and a direct question. The first direct question from yesterday which I have given you is this. It is a language translation platform to provide information to the farmers in their respective vernacular languages. Solely a weather prediction platform to predict accurate weather for farmers. A platform which can provide loans to farmers at relatively cheaper rates, and none of the above. So here again you need to have that clarity about KRISHI ICCC, and if you have that clarity, you will be able to answer this. Which can be the practical applications of KRISHI ICCC? Again, a question where you need to think. So, drought actions, farmers advisory, loan disbursal and settlement, validation of yield, farm data repository, all these are there, and out of these you have to choose that which is the right choice. UPSC gives these kind of questions a lot, so you need to have bit of clarity, and if you have that bit of clarity also, you will be able to answer these questions. Now you can mention your answers in the comment section. Yesterday one of the students did mention, and by the end of the day I will make sure that I will also go there in the comment section and respond to your queries or whatever they are, and I will give you the right answers to these questions. So let's make this more engaging. Let's bring this into practice, the MCQs and all. And if you bring this into practice, a lot of things can improve. Like you have to focus on very, very small minute things, and if your focus on those small minute things is displaced or misplaced, your answer will be wrong. So this kind of temperament will develop with regular practice. Obviously the content based and all that will increase, but this will also increase this approach, this visualization of the MCQs, which is very much important for the prelims examination. So with this, I come to an end of today's session, and I will be meeting you tomorrow now. Till then, you guys very well know. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai Hind.